already too old to try new things. I can't get that job. I need a diploma, and I don't have any. I always wanted to create my side business, but unfortunately, I don't have time. Of course they chose him instead of me. He was the smartest kid in our school. You know, I studied in a small village, and education was awfully bad there. That's why I could not get a good education. Are you familiar with these statements? I'm sure you've heard them a lot. Welcome on Mr. Investing Lectures channel. Please like and subscribe if you find the video useful. Are the excuses we tell ourselves to convince us why we are not doing certain things or why we are not successful. We tell these excuses to ourselves so that we don't feel bad. The excuse is a disease, and in this video, I will explain how you can cure it. Additionally, I will talk about several lessons about fear, self-confidence, how to think big, and how to think creatively. All these lessons come from above. This is a book called The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. Let's start with the excuses. I was born in a small village and lived there until I was 18. While I was in high school, we had a middle-aged neighbor who would constantly talk about his university years and how he was the best in his faculty. He talked about how difficult it was to study during the Soviet time and how he spent his student years without getting any financial support from his family. He also talked with great pride about his friends who were now in high position. One day, I asked this man, how did he end up in a village in such a low-paying job since he was so successful at university? He stayed silent for a few seconds and then said that it was his dream to go to Moscow. But he got married and had kids, which is why he could not become successful as his friends did. He simply said he wasn't successful because of his wife and kids. At the time, to me, it seemed like this man sacrificed his career for his family. But after reading the book, The Magic of Thinking Big, I understood that this man was just using his family as an excuse for his failure in life. The author says that the more successful a person is, the fewer excuses he or she makes. It's always the people who aren't getting anywhere in life that have excuses for why they can't, why they won't, and why they aren't. If you want to do something, you find a way. If not, you find an excuse. You may get a little sympathy from your friends, but you will not get respect if you are a chronic complainer. Thoughts, positive or negative, grow stronger when fertilized with constant repetition. Once you convince yourself with an excuse, your brain shuts down and doesn't even look for alternative ways to reach the goal. One of the common excuses is thinking that you are not smart enough, or you are not educated enough. This one is very common. The majority of people around us have it to varying degrees. Here are 3 ways to overcome this disease. First, always remind yourself that your attitude is much more important than your intelligence. The author talks about his friend who didn't have one arm, but was a great golf player. When the author asked him how he was so good at golf despite his lack of an arm, his response was, "The right attitude and one arm will beat the wrong attitude with 2 arms every time." Let me repeat that again. The right attitude and one arm will beat the wrong attitude, and 2 arms every time. Imagine you are the boss and there are 2 accountants working in your company. The first accountant has many years of experience and he actually does his job well. The second accountant is quite inexperienced and is new to the company. The first accountant doesn't bother with anything outside his work. He just does what he's asked to do, and that's that. On the other hand, the second accountant offers his help to his colleagues when he finishes his job early. When someone new joins the company, he welcomes him warmly and offers his help. If there is something he can do in the marketing department, he just does it and doesn't say that it's not my department. Simply put, he tries to help the whole company to succeed rather than only focusing on accounting. Now, as an owner of the company, if you must promote one of those 2 accountants, who would you pick? I'm sure you would pick the second accountant because he has the right attitude. You see, having experience and intelligence is nothing if you don't have the right attitude. I've seen the above example happening in real life many times. I'm sure if you look at the company you are working for, you will see it as well. If you want to move ahead, changing your attitude is more than enough to make a big difference. Second, knowing how to think is much more important than intelligence. The person who knows how to use his brain and imagination to solve problems will always beat the person who uses his brain as a garage for facts. Imagine you are interviewing two people for your own business. The first candidate walks in and you ask him if he knows. He will ask you to explain the height of the building that you are sitting in right now. Oh yes, I know it. I worked as an architect for several years and I memorized the height of all the buildings in these areas. So the height of this building is 25 meters. That is the right answer. The candidate gave you a precise answer. This person goes away and the second candidate walks in. You ask the same question. He looks at you and says, I don't know the answer. Then asks you to excuse him for. I don't know the answer. Then asks you to excuse him for a few minutes. The candidate runs outside, measures the length of his own shadow on the ground. Then measures the shadow of the building. By comparing the ratio of these two shadows, he comes up with a number, runs back inside, and says that the height of this building is around 23 meters.